can't. No, I worked hard on that boss. You can't just drop a boulder on them and call it a day. No, that's too much. No, not from that height. That's too much damage. Oh, hello, internet. I am taking a nap. After 30 long days of monsters in a row, uh, for the monster manual and all that, I thought, I might want to take a long rest. So, this is an opportunity to talk about long rests. And, so, for you players, the Player's Handbook actually talks about the long rest and the short rest on page 186, if you would like to join me. A short rest is a period of downtime at least 1 hour long, during which a character does nothing more strenuous than eating, drinking, reading, and tending to wounds. A character can spend as low as one hit die, if they want, to regain hit points. You have to declare the number of dice that you're rolling before you do this, though, because once you finish rolling these dice, the Dungeon Master, you can't roll more, because the Dungeon Master needs to know how many you're rolling, because you're going to be adding your Constitution modifier to the amount rolled. And then you heal for that much. So, a short rest is a good idea to do after a pretty difficult battle, especially if you're within a dungeon or if you know that there's going to be more enemies coming, like during a siege on a town or something. So yeah, that's something to do. Be careful though when you're using your short rest dice, because during a long rest, you're only going to recover half of your dice left. So for example, if you're a level 8 character, you're only going to be able to recover 4 of those dice during a long rest. A long rest is also something that you can only benefit from once every 24 hours. What is a long rest, you're asking? A long rest is a period of extended downtime, at least 8 hours long, during which a character sleeps for at least 6 hours and performs no more than 2 hours of light activity. If the rest is interrupted by a period of strenuous activity, at least 1 hour of walking, fighting, casting spells, or similar adventure activity, the characters must begin the rest again to regain any benefit from it. So basically what that means is you take a nap, go to bed, cap it in for the night. And for every 2 hours, a member of your party wakes up and they stay watch. The other 6 hours of that rest are spent sleeping. Because of this, DMs might have 1 or 2 characters in your party roll perception checks for a night watch. I, as a DM, usually leave that to 1 or 2 characters, because if you get into the semantics of every 2 hours somebody else has to roll, that gives like 4 opportunities, and then there's a lot of dice involved. And while that can be fun, and if you're playing a more dangerous campaign, that's a good idea. But for the most part, you're just gonna go with, just a simple rest. It's a good night's sleep. Typically, it's gonna happen in an inn or in a well-guarded area, especially once your players get Leomund's tiny hut. Any wizard or sorcerer out there, that is the spell to go to, because, well, any of you can learn it, and once you learn it, basically, unless the enemy has dispel magic, you're done worrying when you're resting. But on the note of players, let's talk about dungeon masters. Dungeon Masters, if you would like to follow along, this is on page 267. There are 2 rest variants that you can use in Dungeons & Dragons, called Epic Heroism and Gritty Realism. So for Epic Heroism, you can make the short rests only 5 minutes, and then the long rests are an hour. This allows your players to fight more often at full strength. If you're a DM who loves combat, or maybe you're a DM who has a hard time balancing combat, this isn't a bad idea. Letting your players heal to full health basically protects them from major catastrophes. So, whether you love throwing a ton of monsters at your players, a ton of powerful monsters, mind you, or you're worried that you're going to throw too much at them in this dungeon, consider using the Epic Heroism as your rest variant. For those of you who don't like combat, maybe you should think about the gritty realism. If your players are more interested in political intrigue, or if your players just don't like combat in general, gritty realism turns a long rest into 7 days, and a short rest is 8 hours long, which is the normal long rest. This turns combat into a last resort. You know, your players know that if they get into a fight, they're going to be in a weakened state for a good solid chunk of time. And in the case of something like a dungeon, that's terrifying. In the case of living in something like a town, that just means they have to do some more things with their downtime. A good benefit to this is if you go into Xanathar's Guide to Everything, you have a lot of downtime options that require a long period of time. So if your players are taking 1 week for a long rest, maybe they can take up learning Orcish, or maybe they can work with the local blacksmith to try and create a new sword. So if you're more interested in combat, go with Epic Heroism, but if you're interested in way more role playing than in actual combat, consider Gritty Realism. Obviously, if you're going to use these variants, consult with your players, make sure that this is something they want to do. Personally, when I'm working with my players at my local game store, I just go with the base player's handbook. But I'm thinking for my next adventure, with one of my homebrew settings, I might actually give Gritty Realism a try. But that's, again, up to my players. Obviously, you want everyone to be on the same page. But with that, there's really not much else to say. So, if you don't mind, get out of my house, because I, the hero of Julios, would like to go back to my long rest. This has not been an hour, so I still get the benefit. Thank you for watching as always, and I will see you in the next video. This is the hero of Julios, Xing out.